Welcome back to another episode of the Get Back Coach, presented by Apollo Media. Jay is back after fighting the hurricane struggles down there in Houston. And today, very special guest, we have Ryan McIntyre from the Ryan and Rush show, featuring the Big 12 and West Virginia, and also from the college experience. Ryan, how are we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. We're getting closer to Labor Day. Can't get here soon enough.
Yeah. Now, before we get rolling, if you are looking forward to a video game NCAA College Football 25 specific pod, that will be for next week, after Jay and I have some time to actually play it and review it and give our thoughts on it. So if you're looking for the video game review
release show,
review show, that will be next week. But today we have to talk about the Big 12, the fun conference. So we're going to be giving you a sneak preview, a little preview for each team. Spend about 4 or 5 minutes on each team, what to expect. We will be going in alphabetical order as well. And then we're going to end the show with a little bit of vital information, since this is Ryan's first time on the show. So let's hop right into it. We're going to start with the Arizona Wildcats, new member of the Big 12 coming in from the Pac-12. Jedd Fisch no longer there, but this team returns a really good nucleus of guys. Okay, Ryan, we're going to kick it to you first. What have you seen so far from those Cats in Tucson?
Yeah, so coming in with a lot of confidence. 11-2 last year. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle down the stretch, second half of the year. Beat Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, I believe, is what bowl game it was. I can't keep track of all these bowl games. But obviously, Jedd Fisch goes and takes the Washington job. Brennan comes over from San Jose State. But most importantly, they kept Noah Fifita and McMillan at the wideout position. So offensively, they're going to be explosive. I'm interested to see how they kind of react with a little bit of a target on their back, because they kind of came out of nowhere last year. They threw everybody off guard, and like I said, really played well down the stretch. Their schedule is really hard coming into the Big 12, and then on top of it, you got to play at K-State in a non-conference game. That's a Big 12 game, but not a official Big 12 game. But I mean, they're going to be a tough out because of Fifita and McMillan in that sophomore duo there. So I kind of think this is going to be a top half of the league team. I don't think that they're going to win the league in year number one like a lot of people, but definitely a Big 12 contender right out of the gate.
No, absolutely. Also, to piggyback off that, they're replacing their entire defensive line. It is in a 3-3-5. Jacob Manu, though, absolute beast on that defense. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to match up. Again, new teams coming into conferences, it's kind of hard to tell how is this team going to match, and how is this team going to travel too. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess the good news for Arizona is, you look at their schedule, and obviously that K-State game is going to be tough, but they don't really have too much else outside of conference to write home about. You get New Mexico, who I know I'm excited personally about the Bronco Mendenhall at New Mexico, but I'm not expecting them to be very good in year one. And then you get an FCS program in Northern Arizona. Obviously, that Kansas State game is going to be interesting. It's a very fun stylistic matchup. Like, you're expecting the hard-nosed, smash-mouth Kansas State style versus the more explosive Arizona team. And again, like getting Fifita and McMillan back, you expect this team to be pretty dang good. But you have a really tough road game at Utah. Getting Kansas State and Utah back-to-back as well, both road games, like that is a physical 1-2 punch to experience. You also have BYU on the road. I guess the one good piece for Arizona is maybe, you're not going to as many of those East Coast schools. Like you get UCF on the road. That's going to be a big travel game, but some of the other travel games aren't necessarily as far. I'm like Ryan on this one, where I think this is a top half of the league team. But I'm not sure that they're going to be able to hold up to, especially with I'm not expecting him to come out of Kansas State and Utah back to back completely healthy.
No.
And I think that's going to be something that could give them problems over the course of the season. Also going to be interesting to see what Brent Brennan does there. Coming from San Jose State, obviously San Jose State, Jake, I think we've looked at this. Like, that is not a program that has any kind of history at all.
None.
And Brent Brennan's record isn't super impressive on an island, but winning at San Jose State is extremely difficult. So I'm kind of excited to see what he does at Arizona. But again, it's just going to be a battle for the squad.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with pieces. I mean, his best year at San Jose State was that COVID year, which is really hard to tell with everything. But this Arizona, I agree. I think this is a top half team. I could see him going 8-4, and I can see him going 9-3. I don't think they're a 10-2. Just because, again, that Kansas State and Utah stretch, you have West Virginia, but they're at home at least for them. But I think they're going to be on the outside looking in when you're talking about like championship weekend. But this is very much a tough out. I think we're all on the same page there. But seeing new coach with a nucleus, a lot easier than a lot of these other rebuilds around college football. We move on to their bitter rivals, the Arizona State Sun Devils, 3-9 last year, 2-7. The Dillingham era didn't start off very, very good. They were, again, I don't know, were they dead last in the Pac-12?
No, Colorado.
Yeah. I think they were dead last. If not, they were like right there.
Yeah, Colorado was dead last.
Colorado was dead last.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because the Colorado games that they won were non-conference. But Arizona State finishes dead last. Worked the portal a little bit. A lot of upperclassmen you're going to see on their depth chart, but like, are these guys good? I don't know. We didn't really see much last year. I think receiver's a big bright spot, but this team is pretty questionable up front. Jay, we'll kick it to you first. Well, what are you reading with the Sun Devils?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Let me preface this by saying that I'm a Kenny Dillingham fan. I think he can be successful. He's a high energy offensive guy in the same vein of some other guys that I'm a fan of. Reminds me a little bit of like Scotty Walden at UTEP. Like, he brings that same kind of infectious energy. And I think Arizona State has recruited well too, especially Dillingham has some Texas guys on his staff there. And I think they've recruited well in the state of Texas, and maybe that's kind of tinting my glasses a little bit. But I think they're going to be much better than they were last year. With that being said, I still think that it's like a 6-6, 7-5 team. It's a challenging schedule. They get Wyoming, who's always a decent group of 5 team. They have Mississippi State, who I'm not super high on from our SEC preview, but I think that's going to be an interesting game. And then they play at Texas State. And Texas State is a team that I think is going to compete for that group of 5, like top of the group of 5 level. I think that's how good that Texas State team is. So it's a very challenging non-conference schedule for Arizona State. And again, I think it's this is probably like a 6-6, 7-5, 5-7 team, somewhere around there. Kind of just depends on how they come on in the back half of the season, because I think this is going to be a team that struggles in the beginning of the year, but starts to kind of put the pieces together as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at your non-conference schedule, and you play Wyoming, and also you have to go at Texas State, who is not a team to be trifled with either. Like, they will smack you in the mouth. Ryan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, kind of similar to Jay. I think I like Dillingham. He comes from Dan Lanning, that Oregon tree, and like you said, they're recruiting at a decent level. They bring in Sam Levitt over from Michigan State. And I joke when we were going through the non-conference schedule, I don't know why they scheduled that game to San Marcos. That's got loss written all over it. So, but I thought in year 1 he took over kind of a dumpster fire with the Herm Edwards situation. I actually thought they got better as the year went on. Like, I thought they were thin up front early and often, But I thought that they got better, and I thought it was a sign of that they didn't quit on him. I mean, they had Washington beat at Washington late in the year, if not for a questionable penalty. And obviously, Washington went to the national championship. Them and Colorado were kind of opposites. Arizona State got better, Colorado didn't. I actually think that I'm kind of in agreement with Jay that I think that they could be a 5-6 win team and maybe sneak into that bowl eligibility through the back door.
Mm-hmm. No, and like I'm not super high on Levitt, and I know he hasn't. We still the questions are still out on him. We got to see how's he going to do. But yeah, just I think this team's maybe a little too thin up front. I think they're at the 5-win mark. I think they're just outside of bowl eligibility. But I think games are going to be a lot closer, like you said, Ryan. Like this team did get better last year. I still think they're a year away from potentially putting some more pieces together, especially if a lot of those seniors have eligibility left. Throw some super seniors in there and then really get the ball rolling. But no, the program's looking better, but I think we're still looking at a team that's going to be in the bottom third of the conference. And then we move to Waco, Texas. Has there been a bigger plummet than Dave Aranda? This is Jay. Do you think this is rivaling Gene Chizik, like without the national title?
I don't want to compare Aranda to Gene Chizik because I like Aranda.
Yeah.
But I think it was a very, very stark drop off. On like the flip side of that, though, I think Dave Aranda has at least tried to address his shortcomings. Mm-hmm. This is another program that has started recruiting better. I love that Dave Aranda just came out and said, like, we're paying players. Like, what an all-time, like, I love that dude. Robbie Lawler lookalike is another reason that I just like Dave Aranda for the MMA fans out there. But I think Baylor's going to take a step forward.
Yes.
Like, I think they're going to be playing for Dave Aranda. I think they like him as a coach. It's just, they lost a lot. And I think Dave Aranda took a big step back and just kind of looked at what they've done, right? Like what has worked and what hasn't. I think he's going to focus more on the defensive side of the ball. You bring in Spavital as the offensive coordinator. I'm expecting this to be a better team. With that being said, is it going to be enough? I don't know if they're going to save Dave Aranda's job. The good news for Baylor is that they have winnable games in non-conference with Tarleton State and Air Force. But yeah, I think this is going to be very similar to Arizona State, probably a touch better. Yeah. I would say they're closer to the mid-pack or the top half of the conference than Arizona State is. The big question is it going to be enough to save Dave Aranda's job?
Well, I'll say this before I kick it to Ryan. DeQuan Finn, who I loved watching, on Maction. He was a star at Toledo. He's going to go down to Baylor. I mean, he's an electric player. I don't know how it's going to translate to Big 12 football because Big 12 is going to be a lot different than the MAC. But listen, that guy, big arm, can boogie. I like Baylor. I think they're making a bowl game this year. Again, Jay, I don't know if it's going to be enough to save Aranda's job, but I do think they're a bowl team. Ryan, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm actually one of the guys that's high on Baylor, and I know a lot of people were high on Baylor last year. A lot of it because of their schedule. They had 8 games at home last year, and they went 1-7 in those games, which is kind of hard to believe. But I do like the addition of Finn, the MAC Player of the Year. He was electric, and we saw this last year, us West Virginia fans, where you got a coach on the hot seat. What does he do? If this ship is going down, we're going down my way. Aranda's calling defensive plays like Neil Brown did on the offensive side. He's able to save the season. I kind of think Baylor had some bad luck last year too. And I like Spavital. I mean, he's Jay, you know him from his Texas A&M days. He was our offensive coordinator with Dana. Some good offenses at Cal last year as well. I kind of think that and he's got head coaching experience as well. I kind of think Baylor could be a 7, maybe if things really broke the right way this year, maybe even get to 8 wins. When Baylor's counted out is when Baylor usually is sneaky. When Baylor's got expectations, that's usually when they underachieve. So, but yeah, this is a make or break year for Dave Aranda.
No, yeah, it's again, I think this is a bowl team. I wouldn't be surprised if they get the 7 wins. Again, not sure if that's going to save Aranda's job, but they do take a step forward. Had a little expectations last year. I think they've kind of fulfilled them, or at least are on the radar. I think if Aranda shows they're trending upward a little bit, I think they'll give him another year, because he did win a Big 12 championship. He has proven he can do it. So I don't think they're quick for a rebuild. And on top of that, they're recruiting much better.
Yes.
Recruiting much better. So I don't think they're going to try and give up on him that soon. Now we move on to Utah, but not the Utah Utes. We are going to BYU. 5-7 last year, 2-7 in conference. The Cougars got a tough schedule, I think. I think they got a tough look at it. Receivers are all back. However, they are weak up front. And it was weak last year, and I don't think it got any better. They're trying to fill the void up with transfers on defense, weak offense. One of the worst pass rushes in the country. So I don't know what BYU is going to do, but I think this is I don't know if it's a step backwards, but I think they're missing out on a bowl this year. Brian, what do you think about the Cougars?
Yeah, so BYU was interesting last year because they kind of looked the part early. They were 5-2. It's like, hey, you know what? BYU's adjusting nicely to the Big 12, and then they didn't win another game the entire year. And I think you mentioned it, the depth really wore them down. I think that they're going to take a little bit of a step forward, but this is another coach, by the way, that seed is warming up there in Provo, kind of like Aranda Sataki. If they don't make a bowl, it might be it for him in Provo. And the non-conference is challenging with road trips to SMU and Wyoming, both road spots. So question marks at the quarterback position as well. Shapen coming over from Baylor. I don't know what I think of BYU. Maybe 6-6. They it kind of feels like, just like last year, it's going to come down to that last game if they can get bowl eligible.
Jay?
Yeah, to echo what Ryan said about the schedule, you got the Big 12 ACC matchup between BYU and SMU, right?
Yeah.
Weird to talk about, but that's a very good SMU squad. There's a reason that they're feeling comfortable making the jump to Power 5 football this year. That's going to be a tough game to win on the road. Normally with Wyoming, I would touch on elevation because, Wyoming touts it. They got the highest stadium by elevation in college football, but Provo's not like sea level by any means. So I think BYU should theoretically fare better than some schools have going up there. Just the fact that Wyoming's a great team, though, will make that one interesting. Man, like looking down the schedule, closing the year out with Houston is an interesting one, because I think Willie Fritz is going to have that program humming by the end of the year. I think that's a really challenging game. And man, I don't think BYU gets to a bowl game. I think that they're going to struggle with the non-conference, and then with like you said, Jake, just not being physical up front on either side of the ball. I think that's going to get them. You mentioned the pass rush as well. Obviously, they're going to need to figure something out if they're going to compete in this league. So I don't have BYU going to a bowl game this year.
If you don't get to the quarterback in the Big 12, it's a long year for you.
Yeah. And this isn't like the air raid Big 12
No.
gold, but it's still like you need to be able to pressure the passer, and that, I just don't think BYU has it.
Yeah, absolutely not. As we move on, we have old Big East foe of the West Virginia Mountaineers, Cincinnati. Last year, 3-9, 1-8 in conference. Did I read that correctly? Not good. Horrible. Yeah. And the defense loses a lot. They lose a lot of guys on D. I like their run game. Solid offensive line. Corey Kiner. Great run. Grounded pound. don't love their pass game. They can do one thing. They can run the football. They're trying to fix their defense again, trying to plug holes with transfers. This might be the worst team in the conference. And then if they are, is Scott Satterfield? I mean, this is only year. This is going to be his second year. This is going to be year 2. So again, I don't know. I think if they're really bad, maybe they might say, we might want to pull the plug on this. Or they might say, hey, we're going to give him one more shot. But his seat is warming up. And if it doesn't take another step forward, it's going to be hot by the end of this season. I think this might be the worst team in the conference this year. Rye.
So I usually try in the preseason to like give myself a glass half full on every team, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the Satterfield hire to start with. I kind of thought that they regressed a little bit at Louisville. We saw what Braum did in year 1 there as well. He takes over a proud program that was just in the playoff, and they really were not well coached last year, in my opinion. I thought that they would win the box score every single week, and then they would somehow lose because it'd be turnovers, penalties. Emory Jones is out now. Sorsby comes over from Indiana, who I think is okay, but they are going to be able to play a physical brand of football if they can just limit their turnovers and kind of lean into that. They're stud on the defensive side. Dante Corlin, he's dealing with some health issues right now, so hopefully he can get back on the field. But we know what they're going to do offensively. They're going to have an identity of running the football. But in a league where somebody's got to lose the games, I kind of look to Cincinnati as kind of in the basement in the Big 12.
Yep.
Yeah, and the other piece of that too is with that terrible Big 12 slate that they had last year, they had a lot of home games. They are on the road much more this year, so that's going to be challenging. You look at the non-conference schedule. They play a Miami team that they lost to last year, Miami of Ohio, mind you, and they play at Miami of Ohio. A little bit of an old Ohio rivalry there. They play Pitt, who is likely going to be. I think Nard is probably on the hot seat as well.
The Nard doc. Couldn't happen to a better guy.
I love Pitt.
Yeah, I figured the reactions there would be par for the course, but I think that you look at the schedule and I gotta agree with both of y'all. Like, this is the team that I feel like is gonna end the year at the bottom of the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, unless they can figure something out with their passing game, Sorsby, again, okay. I don't think he's anything that great. They got to figure it out on defense too. But the one good thing is they can run the football. Yeah. So clean up mistakes, and if you can run the football, you have a shot. So at least they have that going for them. But no, I think this is a team that, like you guys said, I think this is a team that might be towards the bottom of the Big 12. Now, everybody's Super Bowl, the Colorado Buffaloes. 4-8 last year, 1-8 in conference. What can I say? Shadir Sanders can sling the rock, okay? And I don't think anyone can take that away from him. The kid's good. Travis Hunter, very special talent, okay? Shiloh Sanders, good safety. Who is going to block and who is going to take up blocks for them? That I have no idea. Again, and I feel like a broken record because I feel like everyone is trying to do this. They're trying to plug up holes up front through the portal. Okay, this is like the 4th team I've said that with. But this team needs it desperately. Also, don't love Travis Hunter's comments on his live stream saying the video game is realistic because they don't block anybody. Not a good look. I think this team lacks depth. However, I do think they take a step forward. I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year. However, I think a lot of teams are going to be eyeing them up because of how brash they are and how flashy they are. And I think this team is 5-7, but would not surprise me if they go 6-6 just by outscoring people. Jay, kick it to you first.
Yeah, one thing that I do want to bring up in regards to Colorado's kind of collapse at the end of the year. Uh, Obviously, the Stanford loss is terrible, and they got blown out by Washington State and Oregon. But they played a lot of close games against tough teams. I mean, Arizona was a one-score loss. Oregon State was a one-score loss. USC took them down to the wire. Utah was a one-score loss. So, like, yeah, it's bad, and I don't think the coaching is particularly great there. Uh, I think there's a lot of game management things, and just I think there's a way you have to carry yourself as a coach. And I could get some flack for saying this, but I think you stand up for your players a little bit more in the media, as far as the offensive line, and you handle it within the doors of the facility, right? Like, uh, to compare it to a certain coach that just left College Station in baseball. There were times that he talked about players to the media where I think you talk to your players behind closed doors and you address it with them, and you support them in public. And I think that when you don't do that, you see situations where the players don't want to play for you as much because they don't feel like you have their back, off the field. That's one thing that kind of concerns me about this Colorado team. Challenging non-conference schedule as well. You start off with North Dakota State, a killer of FBS programs, well-known killer. They're not quite to the level that they've been in the past. Obviously, it feels like South Dakota State has kind of stepped into that top of the Missouri Valley Football Conference role. But North Dakota State is still a very dangerous FCS program to schedule anytime. Nebraska, who I think will be very good. I'm kind of buying into Matt Rule here a little bit, but I think Nebraska will be good this year, and I think they'll want revenge for what happened last year. And you play at Colorado State. That's a game that you want in overtime. Again, like I've been kind of like, I don't think Colorado State's going to be good because I've been touting the Colorado State as a sleeping giant for a while, but you better believe that Colorado State's going to get up for that game. Like that is the Rocky Mountain Showdown. It means a lot to the Colorado State. Like that is their Super Bowl, even without all the things that we've said about the flashiness of Colorado. Like Colorado State gets up for that game no matter what. And then in conference, I mean, I think they'll be better than Cincinnati, but that's the only program that I feel confident in saying that they'll be better than.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Colorado gets to bowl eligibility in year 2.
No. Before I go to Ryan, you saying about how Dion should be standing up more for his players in public. The thing is, he stands up for Travis Hunter. He stands up for a lot of those skill guys.
And that's an easy way to divide a locker room.
Exactly. And I wanted to love the Dion hire. I wanted to love it so much. I did. I wanted to love it. But at every turn, I'm just like, oh man, I don't know if you get it. I don't know if you get college football, or if you understand how to manage a locker room. But we'll see. Listen, I'm all, not to beat a dead horse, but I'm not even sure if he sticks around after his kids leave. And again, if he leaves, if he leaves that program after this year, and he says, "Hey, I'm out." One, Colorado's going to be in shambles. They're going to be bad for a while when he leaves, because that's going to be an absolute dumpster fire.
To be fair, they weren't good when he got there.
I know they weren't good when he got there anyway. But I think it's going to be even worse. And I think he's going to prove all the people that doubted him and all the people that ripped him, he's going to prove them right if he just turns tail and leaves after his kids are gone. So I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he sticks around for a little bit, just to maybe he can right the ship. But yeah, I don't know if they make a bowl. I think they go 6-6, but I'm also kind of leaning 5-7. Ryan, what do you think?
When I first glanced at it, I had 4-8, and I was like, maybe I'm being a Colorado hater. But then I look, they're going to be an underdog in 8 out of their 12 games. They're only going to be favored against North Dakota State, at Colorado State, who they barely beat last year. They should have lost that game. Baylor at home, and then Cincinnati at home. Like, they're not going to be favored in any of those other games. And I thought that he did a good job early of just getting some energy in that program, but then it wore off kind of like everything else. And then it became X's and O's on a weekly basis. I thought they were horribly coached. I thought they were disorganized. I mean, that Stanford game where they blew a 30-point lead, they had so many penalties in the second half, just having too many guys on the field. And then the thing with Sean Lewis, how basically just threw him to the curb in the middle of the year after their offense is what carried them. And then here in comes Shermer. It makes no sense. And he's not running a program. He's just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, basically. And it's an experiment. And I can't. Yeah, his son's good at the quarterback position. Hunter's great. They did upgrade their offensive line, but their depth is still a big time issue. And when I think of the Big 12, it's great fan bases, great cultures, but really good football coaches. He's going to have in the month of October and November on a week to prepare. Do we really think he's going to, as an underdog, beat Lance Leipold, beat Chris Kleiman, beat Kyle Whittingham, beat Mike Gundy? Like, they're not going to beat those teams when there's film on all these guys. So I think maybe 5-7, but I kind of laid it out. I kind of leaned to 4-8 with Colorado and allowed 4-8, but I think that they'll start fast, but then their depth will wear them down again because they just have too many guys departing the program year in and year out now.
Yeah, and like we have a saying in the Big Ten, and it's called October and November Maryland is a lot different than September Maryland.
Yep.
And my theory is
Colorado.
When it's late in the season, they have some great skill guys, but when it's late in the season, it's tough for the wear and tear of that season. It beats them down. And I think Maryland, again, Maryland doesn't have a Shadir Sanders or a Travis Hunter, but they have a lot of better depth guys there. And like, if Maryland turns into that, listen, your skill guys, your quarterback can only carry you for so long. We saw last year with USC.
Yep. Caleb
Williams was absolutely incredible. Like, he's one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in how long. And, USC went 7-5. And they had an elite level quarterback. So how's Colorado going to do? I don't know. They beat Cincinnati. I don't know if they beat Baylor at home. We just got done talking. Baylor's going to be improved. Don't know if they beat Colorado State. That's a toss-up. And also, North Dakota State is going to be coming for blood. Mm-hmm. I hope those players at Colorado understand. Like, I know Dion does, because Dion has said, like, in his media, he said, hey, you couldn't start me off with an easy one. So he knows North Dakota's good. I hope he relays that to his guys of, hey, this is an FCS team, but this is not your typical FCS team. Like, this team is going to be coming for blood and for something to prove.
And the other piece of that North Dakota State game, which I don't think I touched on, is North Dakota State wins games in the trenches. And that just so happens to be where Colorado is going to be the weakest.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch.
And on the flip side of that, Colorado in the skill department has better Jimmies and Joes. So it's going to be
styles make fights.
There we go, Jay. Styles make fights. Bingo. So now we move on to a team that got the better of West Virginia, and it was a crying shame. I was punching
Why'd
air.
You have to bring that up?
I was punching air at this last one. But Houston. And before we get started, Ryan, because I'm interested to hear your take on this, okay? Because I want to bring it up because I haven't had another West Virginia person on here. Jay's shaking his head because he knows where this is going. Dana. What is it with Dana Holgerson and just leaving programs with nothing there? Just leaving the cover bare.
Yeah.
Just starting a fire and saying, it's my time to go.
Yeah.
I'm gone. And what is your take on Dana Holgorsen, honestly?
I actually am in the more pro Dana. I thought we had some good teams with Dana, and we were entertaining. I mean, we until this last year had not been in the top 25 for X amount of weeks, and under Dana, like consistently, we kind of were a top 25 team, whether it was Will Greer, Geno Smith, Skylar Howard. But obviously, it usually ends in a shit show with Dana. So, and that's kind of how it ended at Houston. Yeah, he's a character. He's definitely his own personality, and I feel like after 5-6 years, I think in college basketball we see this with Eric Musselman. It's time for him to go to a new spot because he just wears on you with his personality and the way he does things. But from an X's and O's, I thought he was fantastic. It's just the other stuff that comes with Dana that just wears you out, and it's like, all right, it's time for a change.
Fantastic offensive mind.
Yes.
Like I think he
Mike Leach guy.
Yeah, like tremendous. If offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen, I think is top level coordinating. Yep. But like you look back at some of those West Virginia teams, and like you said, ranked, fun to watch, but how many times did he win 9 games? Once?
I actually a couple times. They were really good at not finishing season strong. They were I'm trying to think of an analogy. They kind of were like Penn State in a way, in terms
there's
of like
there's always
they couldn't beat the top dogs, and when they would get close, they kind of would peter out down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean I can see that, but it's just like Dana, offensively great. Yeah. Even some of those defenses were like okay, but the last thing for Dana in West Virginia was for at least me. And again, it was my first year living in Morgantown. I watched a lot of West Virginia football in Pennsylvania, but I think he squandered that Will Greer year.
Oh yeah.
I think that should have been a 10-win football team. And with 10 wins, it didn't matter what would have happened in that Oklahoma game at the end of the season. They would have won. Or maybe they needed to beat him for a tiebreaker. But, I mean, I feel like he just squandered that year. And then he kind of looked at what was left and was like, oh, my seat might be a little warm anyway. I'm just going to go to Houston, collect the bag, and you guys can figure it out after. And, you know, I think Neil Brown, for all the flack he gets, I think in the beginning, I don't think enough people gave him a shot of, hey, this is a tough rebuild here. But we'll hold off. We'll hold off on Neil.
I was going to say,
Ole Miss is more the comparison. Penn State goes like 10-2. I know they lost to like Illinois that one year, but Ole Miss, like it always feels like they're on the cusp of getting over the hump, and then they just get drilled by the top dog, or they'll just drop a random game under Lane and Dana are kind of similar in a way. They are very brands of football in minds.
Yes. Well, thank you for at least giving a little bit of a tear up there, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Well, Penn State,
I wasn't gonna fight yet, man.
I said Penn State to just mess with you, but I mean, hey, you know,
I wasn't gonna fight you. All right.
This is where the playoff for you guys, so you better get in this time.
So going back to Houston, 4-win team last year, returns very little. This is a full rebuild. However, Jay alluded to this. Willie Fritz is coming to town, and I think he's gonna it's going to be a shot in the arm to Houston. I don't know how good they're going to be. I think they're going to lose a lot of games, but I think they're going to be close. But I think Houston hiring Willie Fritz, I think it's going to be next year and the year after. I think we're going to see some major growth there. Jay, what are you thinking with the Houston Cougars? I don't have their schedule up right now.
Yeah, the first thing that pops out to me is very challenging schedule. You get Oklahoma in a non-conference game in Norman. That's going to be a big test. But you also have a UNLV team that I think is going to be very good. just because I'm still we got on the train last year before the season started, and I'm still on it. The go offense with Brennan Marion is just so much fun. And I think UNLV is going to be a very challenging non-conference foe. I think Houston wins that game, but I think it's going to be very close and very tough. They should be able to handle Rice. Rice loses a lot this year. And then you get into the schedule, and like it's kind of similar to Colorado in that I don't know how many of these games are going to be better than the teams that they play. I favor them against Cincinnati, even though that's on the road. But like you're going to Arizona, you're going to BYU instead of getting BYU at home, I think hurts Houston, especially late in the season. You're running the risk of weather being a factor there in late November in Provo. But with that being said, with Willie Fritz, I think this team is going to get better as the season goes on. I think that the more time that he has around this program, the better the Cougs will get. I don't think they get to bowl eligibility in year one. I'm a Willie Fritz fan, but I don't see the depth or the talent there to get to bowl eligibility in year one. But I think they're going to surprise somebody at some point in the year. I don't know who it's going to be. This is a team that I would not want to face late in the year.
No, they got a tough schedule at the end of the year. Utah, Kansas State, at Arizona, Baylor, who we discussed will be better, and then at Provo, which you said might be weather. But Bryce, Cincinnati on the road, I think will be a little tough. Nippert, hopefully it's not at night for Houston's sake. But UNLV, Rice, Cincinnati should be your 3 wins. It's going to be tough to find another win there. But again, they're going to be playing better, going to be playing close. Ryan.
Yeah, so agree everything with what Jay said in terms of like if you just go exit or Jimmy's and Joe's, this team probably should go 2-10, to be honest. Dana did not leave them a good roster here or anything to work with. But with Willie Fritz, I'll bank on them pulling out an upset or two in the month of November, getting better as the season goes along, as we see with these first-year head coaches at times. But the main thing for Houston Cougars fans, they got the right guy leading the program. I kind of view him as the same as like Lance Leipold at Kansas, just a program builder, football guy, and whatever the max of what they can win, he'll get it there somehow. Yep. So maybe they can squeeze out 4-8, but probably a 3-9 team in year number 1.
No, absolutely. We move on to seems like the constant in the Big 12, Iowa State, 7-5 last year, 6-3. Started off just awful. Somehow figured it out. Did lose the bowl game to Memphis, but no team returns more production in the conference than the Iowa State Cyclones. 90% of the offense is back, 80% on defense. Abu Sam behind a great offensive line. You got pass catchers. You have a balanced offense. Matt Campbell might find his way here, and I think this team gets to 9 wins. I really do. I think this is going to be a nice breakout year for Iowa State. They're going to be well coached, and they're going to be tough. And last year things didn't go their way to begin the season. They ended the year pretty strong, and I think that's going to carry over this year. I'm a little higher on the Iowa State Cyclones than other people. Ryan, what are you thinking?
I'll join you on being high on this team because they've returned 18 starters, and I know they wanted whoever the head clown fan was that was trying to run them out of town after they lost to Ohio U. I think people forgot that they lost like half the roster to the gambling scandal. So what he was able to do with the short roster, Rocco Beck kind of took the reins, and they still, over the last 2 years, for whatever reason, have been on the wrong side of these one-score games. I think they're like 2-11 or 2-12 in one-score games over the last couple of years. Maybe it finally bounces their way, and they get on the right side now that they have probably even or better talent. But like you said, Matt Campbell, we saw they go in waves in this program with the Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, and that group. Mm-hmm. Now they got this young core, got some experience. I think that they can get to Dallas like they did in 2021 and people just got to remember what Iowa State was before Matt Campbell. They went through a
Exactly.
little rough stage when they lost an NFL quarterback who played in the Super Bowl last year and a stud running back. Hold your horses, everybody. This guy can coach, and I like Iowa State a lot this year. 9-3. If they could really get some breaks, a couple bounces, maybe even 10-2, but probably in that 9-3, 8-4, contending for a Big 12 title.
Yep, Jay.
The problem is they get probably the two toughest games of their schedule, other than the non-conference at Iowa, at the end of the year. You get Utah and Kansas State to close out the season. Two very physical teams in the later half of the year, which favors physical teams. Not that Iowa State doesn't have an element of physicality of their own, but it's tough. I think 9-3 is a good record for the squad. I don't see any way that they win both Utah and Kansas State at the end of the year. So I'm thinking at least one of those is a loss, if not both. They'll probably pick up at least one more loss somewhere along the way, maybe Iowa. But I think I lean more towards like an 8-4. I think one of those middle of the year games, maybe like West Virginia, Texas Tech, Kansas, they pick up another loss. So I see 8-4 for Iowa State, but I do think they're going to be a very tough team. Not somebody that I would want to see on the schedule if I was a Big 12 opponent.
Absolutely not. You never do, especially playing at Iowa State. I mean, those people show up. Ames is like a weird, it's a weirdly cool college football destination. Ames, Iowa, like tailgate, really fun. They get after it there. So, but yeah, I think this is going to be a good year. Hopefully some bounces go Matt Campbell's way. Kansas. We move on to Kansas. Jalen Daniels, is he done for the entire year, or is he just out for a little bit?
No, he's back.
Was he injured?
He was injured. I'm almost positive he was injured.
That was a fake. That was a fake report a couple weeks ago.
Was it really?
Yeah, no, because I fell for it too. I was like, you got to be kidding me. He's already hurt. It was a fake report. He's good to go.
I got duped.
There you go.
And guess what? Jeff last week also got duped.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you sure? And then I Googled it. I'm like, oh, yeah, there it is right there.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So if Jalen Daniels is good, darn, I sound like an idiot. If Jalen Daniels is good to go, I really like this team. Again, Lance Leipold, great. I mean, it's nothing short of a miracle work. What he's able to do at Kansas. However, even though fake report, Jalen Daniels needs to stay healthy because there is no Jason Bean to back him up. So they need to rely 30 seniors on this team, by the way. 30. I love teams that have a lot of seniors on their team. Defense seems like it's getting better every year. But I like this team. 8-4, 9-3. I really think this squad can get to 9-3. Jay.
And the other piece too is I don't think their non-conference schedule is overwhelming.
No, not at all.
Lindenwood, obviously, that should be a win.
Yeah.
Bigger problems if they don't win that game. Illinois and UNLV, both very winnable games.
Yep.
Yeah, I look at this team, and I think even 10-2 is on the table here. Obviously Kansas State's going to be a tough one, but I think I'll go ahead and spoiler alert this. I think the best two teams in the conference for me personally are Utah and Kansas State. And not having both on the schedule is an advantage for Kansas in my mind. So I think you could be seeing a Kansas Jayhawks team that only has one conference loss by the end of the season, especially with the amount of senior leadership that you mentioned, Jake. 30 seniors. Jalen Daniels, obviously, if he stays healthy, this is a very, very good Kansas team.
It is. Absolutely is. Ryan?
It all depends on one guy. I mean, if he's healthy, I honestly, I don't think this is an exaggeration. I think they could do maybe not as good as what TCU did a couple years ago. I think they could be TCU-like with Jalen Daniels, all those skill guys back, Neal in the backfield, and a really, really good coach in Lance Leipold. He's going to get the most out of it. If Daniel stays healthy, he's Heisman Trophy good. That's how good this guy is. But that's a big if. So this is a high variance team. Schedule's nice. Like Jay said, this should be a 10-2 team if the quarterback stays healthy. New offensive coordinator coming over from Baylor, Grimes. So that will be a little bit of a work in progress, but they've overachieved every year with Lance Leipold so far. Why would I bet against him now?
No.
I mean, they lost their starting quarterback and still won 8-9 games last year.
Yeah. And listen, it helped Jason Bean. Like, he's on an NFL roster right now.
Yeah.
Like, it helped the kid out, and now he's making some money. And we were very much on the Jason Bean train.
Yep.
But he's got to stay healthy, because there is no Jason Bean this year to back you up, unless they have another one somewhere, But no, I think this is a very good team. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I know you don't like to root for them for basketball at all, but come on, football, you got to throw them a bone. Right?
Yeah, their coaches, like I say, he's easy to root for.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a grinder. He's really built that thing up, and this is their best chance since Mangino to reach a Big 12 title game.
Absolutely. And then we go to Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, if you will. Kansas State 9-4 last year, 6-3. I'm worried a little bit on them kind of reloading. They lose a lot on offense. Upperclassmen up front, always easy, a little bit easier of a rebuild if you have a experienced offensive lineman. Avery Johnson, I think, has looked good when he's gotten in the game. He's got a wild look with that crazy blonde hair that he has. Defense should be fine. Schedule not too bad. You do have to go to West Virginia, but Houston's manageable. Do have to go to Tulane, but again, after Willie Fritz, I think they're going to be down. So you got some winnable games there. I like Kansas State to go 9-3. Would not be surprised if they go 10-2. I just think on offense they have just a little bit too much that they gotta kind of rework there. Ryan, what are you thinking from the Wildcats?
This is my favorite team in the league. I love what they brought back defensively, and kind of like Leipold at Kansas. I love Kleiman. I think he wins 9 games every year, even in a down year. And I feel like they have been knocking on the door to have a really special year. They were a missed extra point away from being in the Big 12 title. They should have won at Texas last year. If their kicker makes the extra point, they're playing Oklahoma State. And that was coming off winning the Big 12 title. If Avery Johnson can be what the expectations are, this is a team that can get to the playoff and win a game or two, in my opinion, just with their culture and toughness. And like we've talked about, these teams that kind of peter out, that are kind of front runner, skill position, cute guys, this is the opposite. They get better as the year goes along. The tricky spot at Tulane, I know Willie Fritz isn't there, but you got to, whenever you go to a G5, you got to be on your game. So, I think K-State is a playoff team this year.
Yeah, very well could be. Jay.
Yeah, and the other piece of that Tulane puzzle is the guy that they hired to replace Willie Fritz isn't a coaching slouch. John Summerall, coming from Troy, was 12-2 and 11-2 for the Trojans, which is pretty. I mean, I know Troy is a very strong Sun Belt program, but that's still impressive to do what Summerall did there. So I think Tulane's going to be good. I just think Kansas State is going to be great in 2024. I'm buying the Avery Johnson hype. I think he is going to be a very special player for Kansas State. I think he's the best quarterback they've had since Colin Klein, in my opinion. So this is going to be a very good Kansas State program. I already kind of spoiled it in the Kansas preview that I think this is one of the top 2 teams in the conference. And I would expect the Wildcats to be in the Big 12 championship at the end of the year. I honestly think they have a pretty good shot at running the table before the postseason.
No. They're going to be favored in every game. Is the look ahead lines too. So I mean, the schedule breaks nice, like you guys said.
Yeah. Now we move on to what I like to call the box of chocolates of the Big 12, because you never know what you're going to get. Oklahoma State, 10-4 last year, 7-2 in conference. This team got smoked by South Alabama and then went on this like crazy run afterwards. And like the thing is, they didn't just get like upset. They lost 33-7. Like, I don't care if you have an injury here and there. Like, they got smoked by South Alabama. They start the year off against South Dakota State. Not easy. I think they're better than Arkansas, definitely better than Arkansas, better than Tulsa. But then Utah, Kansas State, West Virginia. That's a tough 3-game stretch. At Provo, at Baylor. This is a tough schedule. However, towards the end of the year, kind of gets a little bit easier. Arizona State, at TCU isn't going to be a cakewalk. I think they're going to be better than them, though. Better than Texas Tech, but you can't sleep on the Red Raiders. And then I think at the end of the year, they just kill Colorado. I think this is a 9-3 team. I think they're going to be on the outside looking in of the Big 12 championship game. However, you never know with the crazy mullet man, Mike Gundy. Jay, going to you first.
This is probably going to be a little bit of a bold prediction, but I don't think Oklahoma State goes bowling in 2024. I think that they lose to both South Dakota State and Arkansas. I'm that high on South Dakota State as what they are as an FCS power. I think we maybe discount how impressive the last 2 years have been for the Jackrabbits. And I realize it's different levels of football, but South Dakota State executes so well. And when you have a program like Oklahoma State, who the past few years has just been kind of up and down, playing to their levels of opponent, I think South Dakota State can catch them. I also think Arkansas is going to be playing for Sam Pittman. I think that's going to be a better program than you expect as well, because I feel like those guys do want to win for Sam Pittman. And I realize that KJ Jefferson's not there in Fayetteville any longer. But then I look at it like, again, Utah, Kansas State, West Virginia. I don't know if they win any of those games. Baylor, who we've already said has improved and should be better. That's a tough one. And then, you lose one of the TCU Texas Tech games, and all of a sudden you're looking at 5-7. And that's kind of where I see this season going for Oklahoma State. So I'm going out on a limb here, and I realize that, I may be a little bit overboard, just kind of reading too much into, especially the South Dakota State game, and maybe having a little bit too much in the FCS pot. But I think this is going to be a very tough year for Oklahoma State. And I also don't want to discount the Ollie Gordon storyline going into the season. Obviously, you had the DUI there for Oklahoma State star running back. So I'm just not high on the Cowboys this year.
I will say this. Big Achilles heel of this team is going to be their defensive line. They are not physical up front on the defensive line. And if teams are going to be able to gash them, I think that's going to be a huge problem for them. So if they're going to not make a bowl, I think you can kind of point to that, and also maybe a little disorganization, or maybe some distractions off the field as well. Ryan, what are you thinking with the Cowboys?
Yeah, and I'm the biggest Mike Gundy fan. I just love watching his teams play over the years. I think he's a natural treasure just with being himself. But you kind of look at it, they kind of got all the breaks last year in Big 12 play. They had the easiest schedule with all 4 newcomers. I'm convinced that he almost threw that South Alabama game by playing all 3 quarterbacks the entire time. He kind of treated those first 3 games as the preseason because he knew he couldn't get to the playoffs. So he wanted to have his quarterback of basically preseason games for the Big 12 play. And they really hit their stride when Bowman took over. Bowman is still a little bit of a liability, though, in my opinion. And I do agree with Jay in terms of, yeah, the Ollie Gordon, he's still going to play, but usually the teams that are loud off the field in the offseason kind of start a little bit slow because of distraction. So they bring back a lot. They bring back 17 starters, but also I kind of not 5-7. I thought that was extremely bold, just because Gundy has had 18 straight winning seasons. But I'll go 7-5. I'll go 8-4 just because of Gundy.
There we go.
Yeah, I just think Gundy will find a way to win games, but I do I don't think that they're going to get back to the Big 12 title game. Bowman's just too big a question mark for me at the quarterback position, and they don't have the cupcake schedule this time around.
No, they don't. Moving on to Fort Worth, TCU last year, a big hangover from their national title run, 5-7, 3-6 in conference. I can't get a read on this team. Transfers on the O-line. They get a transfer from Vandy Seals at quarterback. Defense returns a good chunk, but I just can't get a good read. I'm going to go 6-6. I'll be maybe 5-7. I'll be really surprised if they get to 8 wins. I cannot get a good read on the Horned Frogs. Ryan, what have you been kind of hearing?
So what were they? They were 13-2 year one under Sonny Dykes, and they were 5-7. Let's split the difference. I think they're somewhere. I think they're going to go like 8-4. I think that they did have the big hangover. Sonny Dykes talks about how they didn't practice as much coming off the national championship because you're not used to playing late into January, especially for teams that aren't used to getting there year in and year out. And it kind of set their program back in the offseason and maybe a little bit of complacency. We see this all the time with guys that have unbelievable years. But year two with the young kid Hoover at the quarterback position, I think he took his lumps last year. I think this is going to be a 7-8 win team. I think that they're still talented on the offensive at the skill position, and I think that their defense will find a way to bounce back after a disappointing year. This is a hard program to read, though, just because a lot of the time under Gary Patterson, it was the same way at times where they would have a awful 5-7 year, but then the next year it always feels like they would bounce back. I kind of think that they're going to bounce back somewhere in that middle. It's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Give me 8-4 for TCU.
All right. Jay, you are our Texas guy. So,
yeah. Like Ryan mentioned, Josh Hoover, a Rockwall Heath High School product.
There you go.
Which, by the way, was my high school. That's why I bring that
Up.
This is a team that I expect to take a step forward. Sonny Dykes is also just a guy that I think is a very good football coach. I think people, you look at like what he did at Cal, wasn't particularly good, but I think that's just a tough place to win. Go back to his days at Louisiana Tech, go back to what he did at SMU, and I think Sonny Dykes is a very good football coach. I would expect TCU to be better this year. They're going to have some question marks. I'm not expecting them to be like competing for the conference title. But I think there's a lot of winnable games on the schedule. Obviously, you have some challenging non-conference games going on the road to Stanford, who I think is going to be a little bit better in year two under Toy Taylor, and then SMU, who I think is also. And I know this isn't the ACC preview, but I feel like SMU is going to take a step up in their program with moving to a Power 5 conference. So I think that's going to be very challenging. But you look at it and like Kansas State's not on the schedule. I feel like that's a win for TCU in my mind. They do have to go to Utah, which is going to be tough. But I look at the schedule and I think it's among the Big 12. Like I don't hate the schedule for them. So I like TCU to get to like 7-5, 8-4. I think they'll be back bowling in 2024.
Okay. Yep. Very fair. We're going to stay in the great state of Texas, in the land of tortillas, Texas Tech, 7-6, 5-4 in conference. The injury bug hit Texas Tech last year for Mr. Joey McGuire's squad. Returned 50% of their production, which kind of caught my eye a little bit. Half the team you have to replace. Morton returns as quarterback. I think he looked solid last year. I think solid quarterback. And I think they have an easy start to the schedule. And that's where they really struggled last year. They didn't start off very well, but now this year you have Abilene Christian, you have Washington State, who I think is going to struggle a little bit, and then North Texas. So you have 3 wins right there. And then they're better than Arizona State, and they're better than Cincinnati. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 5 wins out of the gate, I think, for Texas Tech. Then it gets significantly harder. Then it's Arizona, Baylor, at TCU, at Iowa State. You get Colorado at home, but then you have to go to Stillwater, and then you end the year against West Virginia, which is going to be a tough game, even though they're at home. And however, I will say West Virginia, I believe, has struggled a lot going to Texas Tech in recent years. So I think this is a 7-5 team. I think they start off real hot, but then I think they start to show, okay, we're good, but I don't know if we're that good type of stuff. But I don't know. Jay, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm a Joey McGuire fan. Obviously, Texas high school football coach who's come up and has done well in Texas Tech. I think I have to echo everything you said, Jake. Like, it's a hot start to the year for Texas Tech, but I think they'll fade as the year goes on, and I think we'll see the injury bug likely bite them again with Morton under center. I think this is a team that can be good. I can't really get a read on Texas Tech either. I just don't really know what to expect. I think a lot of folks were high on them last year. Of course, me knowing that they were going to have to play at Wyoming, I was questioning that to start the year off. And then obviously you had the challenging game against Oregon. So a much easier start for Texas Tech, and maybe that momentum carries them. But I think this team is too much of an enigma to really predict too much from them. So I'll say like a 7-5 is what I see for Texas Tech in 2024.
All right, Ryan.
Kind of like TCU, somewhere in the middle, where I think everybody lost their mind last year. People were saying they were going. We fell in love with them at the end of McGuire's first year, and then headed into year two, we see this where they're going to go to the playoff. They're a playoff contender, and it's like hold your horses. Like this Texas Tech is not playoff good yet. But I do think with the running back Taj Brooks, he's good. They need to get back better defensively. The injury bug did hit them last year, especially at the quarterback position. So I think that they're kind of a 7-5, 8-4 team. I'm a big McGuire fan too, big energy guy, and I think that's why people fell for all the hype last year headed into the year. But I think this is a solid program that they're going to get off to a fast start, but I question if they can finish the job late in the year. So give me 7-5. Maybe if things bounce their way, 8-4.
Yep. I think we're pretty much all on the same page. Then we move to UCF, Central Florida. Gus Malzahn, I think, has done a great job. Yes, they're not like that Scott Frost year, but UCF's frisky, man. They're a frisky team. Love to run the football. KJ Jefferson just going there. Defense returns a good chunk. I think the Knights take a step forward. Big running back duo. Gus Malzahn, another guy who I think is a good coach. I think just sometimes gets he has a whoopsie. It's like a dominating pitcher that like 97% of the time is lights out, and then just throws a meatball up there that like leads to a home run. And I like Gus Malzahn. I think some Auburn people are kind of starting to look around and say, oh, I guess things weren't too bad around, like most fan bases do. But TCU and Florida are going to be the swing games here. I think that is going to be the difference between a 8-win team and a 6-win team. Or is it going to be something in the middle with 7? I'm going to just say 7-5. Frisky team. They've established a culture, not just a, hey, this is a one and done of, it's more of a, hey, we're going to keep playing and we're going to compete in Power 5 football. Ryan.
Yeah, so I feel like this a common theme in the Big 12 is you really can make a case for about 10 teams to win it. Outside of the ones that we really were not high on. Well, you can make me a case that the last 2 could somehow win the Big 12. UCF is the definition of that team that it would not shock me if we saw them in Dallas with KJ Jefferson coming, with these talented running backs, talented skill guys. They bolstered up that offensive line. They were the only newcomer that got to a bowl game last year too, and they lost a bunch of close games. That Oklahoma game comes to mind where they should have won in Norman last year. I thought they had some bad luck. I think it's going to swing the other way this year. And like you said, Malzahn is such a high variance program, but Auburn has not been anywhere near what they were. 8 wins basically every single year there at Auburn. So I think UCF with KJ Jefferson, I'm not going to say that he's Cam Newton like some other people, but I like the fit there. I really do. And I think they could get to Dallas, and I like their schedule with primarily those home games. I know at TCU and at Florida are going to be the swing games, but I do like their home schedule.
And they love him there too.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article saying like he brought the band to practice.
Yep.
And it was like, I think it was like his first year or whatever. He brought the band to practice, and he's like talking to all these people. And like the band director was like, no football coach has ever talked to me in like 10 years. He's like, no one like football, they just want to coach football. And he's like, again, he's playing that politician role.
Yeah.
He can play that politician role of, hey, look at this guy and this guy, and shaking the hands and being like you said, just being a person, being relatable. And I think UCF likes him, even though they had a losing record last year. I think they're going to give him more of a leash. Jay, what are you looking at with the Golden Knights this year?
Man, and this is, I mean, it's the conference of parity for a reason, because I could see UCF going like 9-3. I could see them going 6-6. It just kind of depends on what version of this program we get. That Florida game being middle of the year is kind of wild, especially going to the Swamp. That's going to be an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if Gus Malzahn has a few tricks up his sleeve for that one. But yeah, this is going to be one of the teams that I'm like really excited to just watch. The other piece of it is, and part of the reason why I think UCF was so successful as they transition to the Big 12 is I think they've always looked at themselves as a Power 5 program, or at least in recent history, where they have really invested into that program. They've made the changes to the stadium. They've done a lot of things to kind of make that transition. And it feels like Orlando is really supporting Gus Malzahn. So this is a team that kind of like Kansas, where I just think they're going to be very, very good and not somebody that I would necessarily want on my schedule. With that being said, they get Utah at the end of the year. Can we please, for next year, make sure that the Holy War gets to the last game of the season for rivalry week?
I know, right?
Like,
why?
There's no reason to have this.
No.
No offense to UCF, but Utah and BYU need to be playing each other the last game of the season.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But again, this should be a very good team. I would expect them to be in the upper, we'll say the upper quarter of the Big 12 is the way I'll describe this.
Okay. No, definitely.
Fun team.
Fun. And like, here's the thing with Florida. Here's the thing with that Florida game. If Florida drops some games early, if they lose to Miami, if they lose to A&M, if they're dropping games and Billy Napier looks like he's on his way out, then how motivated is Florida going to be? Because I don't think they respect Florida, Central Florida, even though they got beat in a bowl game. And Central Florida's coming for blood. Like they want to be. When you talk about Miami and Florida State and Florida, Central Florida gets really ticked off when you don't include them too. And I think they're going to be going into the Swamp looking to send a message. If Florida's not careful, that is a game Gus Malzahn can have a little Gus Malzahn magic and beat him. And you know what? He might not even need the Gus Malzahn magic. There's a chance they could just be better.
Yeah.
But we move on to Utah. 8-5 last year, 5-4, a down year for Kyle Whittingham. Cam Rising is finally back after being injured in that Rose Bowl game. He was out for the entire year. Can Cam Rising be the Cam Rising of old? 75% of production. Their defense last year was pretty good. Offense last year was abysmal at times. So if they can get the offense back with Cam Rising, I think this is a team that is going to be in the Big 12 championship. I am very high on Utah as long as Cam Rising can at least resemble, not even resemble the Cam Rising of old. I think they go 10-2. And looking at their schedule, guys, look at this. They're going to be favored in probably every game besides maybe at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
I like Utah to go 10-2. I think Utah usually lose the game they're not supposed to, but I think this is your team that's going to be in the Big 12 championship. Ryan.
Yeah, what's not to like? I mean, they got a 30-year-old quarterback who's been in college for it seems like a decade. Now we need to see him stay healthy. That is kind of an underrated element that I think people aren't talking about. He's coming off that serious knee injury 2 years ago, but love Whittingham's culture, love their defense, love their just brand physicality. This should be a team that gets to the Big 12 title game. Something tells me that they don't, though. I don't know what it is. This is the Big 12. Chalk never happens in the Big 12. So give me Utah to go 9-3 and miss the title game.
Ooh, okay. Jay.
I agree with everything Ryan said, except I do think that Utah defies logic and defies the chalk and gets to the Big 12 title game. I said it. I think Kansas State, Utah, which, by the way, it's a crime that these two teams aren't playing in the regular season because the physicality of that matchup between Utah and Kansas State is something that I am really excited to see if it does happen in Dallas. Man, this is again, like everything Ryan said about the culture with Kyle Whittingham, how they play football, the way they took it to USC 2 years ago, twice in a row, like it's a fun brand of football to watch that you don't necessarily get too much in the college game anymore, and I think they match up well with a lot of the Big 12 because of that. I like Utah to make it to Dallas. I think they're going to be like 10-2, 11-1, because there's not really any non-conference games that give you a fright either. Obviously, you have the Utah State game there, a little bit of a rivalry. Utah State has had to fire their coach, so that like even though you would expect Utah State to get up for that one, I think Utah State's going to have a lot of problems that they deal with, and they're not like the Jordan Love era Utah State, right, where there was kind of a team that could really go up and knock off a Power 5. I really like this Utah team in 2024, and I'm hoping, again, like on paper it should be Kansas State and Utah probably, but I'm hoping that we get to see that matchup in the postseason just because the physical football fan in me wants to see that game. Maybe that's why I'm so like heavy on this Utah squad. But either way, I'm expecting them to have a good season and be near the top of the Big 12.
Absolutely. Nope. Absolutely love it. And we saved the best for last. The West Virginia Mountaineers, 9-4 last year, 6-3 in conference. I was a little surprised with their returning production numbers. I thought it was a little lower than I thought. I mean, listen, you can't replace Zach Frazier. You can't. The kid was a West Virginia through and through, Fairmont kid. Listen, tough schedule. I think they'll beat Pitt, but I mean, it's at Pitt. So, I mean, I guess you never know. However, that is going to be a third of that stadium is going to be West Virginia fans. At
least
more.
No matter what they say up there. Oh, it was not that. Never mind. So here's the thing. Garrett Green, I think, and again, we saw that Penn State game. I thought Garrett Green looked a lot better towards the end of the year. He's starting to figure things out. I am a huge Cole Taylor fan at tight end. I absolutely love Cole Taylor. They have a lot of their offensive linemen back, but you can't replace Zach Frazier. So here's the thing. I have West Virginia making the Big 12 championship by a technicality. A bunch of teams go 9-3. I am a little biased, Ryan, but I have to. But not a bunch of teams go 9-3. But West Virginia sneaks their way in to face Utah in what will be a very physical football game. Here's the problem. Here's the but. I don't know. I know the secondary took a step forward. Okay, Aubrey Burks is back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but Beanie Bishop is not, who
Nope.
was a big guy. I mean, a major dude. So, do you know what scares the living daylights out of me, Ryan? Is that, and again, the people in the desert. I don't like to bring up the people in the desert, but the people in the desert have the over under for West Virginia. Do you know what it is?
6.5.
6.5. And it scares the living crap out of me because I feel like, and I already placed the bet, I took the cheese. Okay, I took the over, but that over under being at 6.5 scares me to where I cannot sleep at night sometimes. Because last time, it seems like every time I look at things, like again, and I'm not comparing Illinois to West Virginia. Illinois last year did not make a bowl. Illinois went to the Outback Bowl, had a bunch of production coming back, and their win-loss total was at 6.5. And I'm like, that is stupid. Yes, I'm going to take that. Illinois should be an 8-win football team. They got, what, 4-8 or 5-7? They missed the bowl. That over-under being at 6.5 scares me to death. I don't know how, but I hate it. Feels like someone knows something, and God, I hope it's not true. I'm going to go to Jay next, and then we'll finish off with you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Jay.
One other piece of the West Virginia Mountaineers that I really like a lot on this offense is their running backs. CJ Johnson, James White, like both of those guys are really fun and great complementary football too.
Yep.
But Garrett Green is a guy that I really enjoy watching play at the quarterback position. Obviously, that Penn State game is a tough way to start the season. I know it's a rivalry game and anything can happen. I think they roll Pitt. I think they.
I hope so.
I think Pitt's going to collapse this year, and I don't see that being a good team. Now again, this is very well a team that could be in the Big 12 championship. I just think they stumble a couple of times. I think that Arizona game is going to be really tough. I think, maybe one of the other games, maybe Kansas, maybe Iowa State. Those are some tough games. I think they finished the season really strong with 3 straight wins. I know the struggles in Lubbock have been publicized, but I do think West Virginia gets over that hump this year. Again, I like the offensive weapons just get me really excited for this team. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them. I just think they fall like one game shy of the Big 12 championship. I think they're going to be right there, but I like West Virginia as like my third team, my first team out of the Big 12 title game.
Oh, and really quick, I figured it out. So I have them at 9-3, but their conference record will be better because they lose to Penn State the opening game.
Yeah.
So that's why. Which, by the way, like that's going to be a great football game, great atmosphere. I wish I could have made it down, but it's just so expensive. That's the most expensive ticket going right now. It's really tough. Even my friends that are down there are like, yo, like we can't even get, like it's crazy right now.
We can pull a Columbia at the Copa America final and sneak in through the vents, Jake.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all saw that video.
Sneak in in the tunnel by the practice field or the practice dome that they got. But Ryan, tell us about your Mountaineers.
What a difference a year makes. A year ago, we were gonna go 2-10. We had the worst starting Power 5 quarterback according to some rankings, and hell, a year later, people are talking about it's coming to the Big 12 title game. I think they're better than last year, but I have a bad feeling that they're going to have a worse record because this is the hardest schedule in the Big 12, in my opinion. We talked Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, K-State, Arizona. Odds-wise, it's 5 out of the top 6 teams right there. Just your first 5 games in Big 12 play. The only one you're missing is Utah. You compound that with you open against Penn State, and then at Pitt, I mean, on paper, West Virginia should beat Pitt, but it's the backyard brawl, and you can throw out all the records. If they can just survive those first 8 games, it does get soft down the stretch. I think they're going to go 8-4. I think that they're going to be better, like I said, but I just think that stretch in the middle with Kansas, Oklahoma State, where we've really had trouble over the years, Iowa State, K-State, and then at Arizona, that's just such a hard stretch. with Penn State at the front end of the schedule. And then you got to finish in Lubbock, where we traditionally been really bad. But love the offensive line, 3 guys back. Love Donaldson and Jaheim White, 1-2 punch in the backfield. Defensively, they put a strong emphasis on the secondary because they brought in about 5 dudes through the portal. Defensively, they got to be able to hold up more consistently, because in the middle of the year when they struggled against Houston and Oklahoma State, their defense really let them down, and that kind of cost them a chance to get the Big 12 title game, because their schedule was soft last year, the opposite of this. So, yeah, I'm going to say I think that they do get the over, but I just think that there's a reason that number is at 6.5, because they're going to be underdogs in 6 games, even with this good roster.
Yeah. The over-under keeps me up at night, Ryan.
Yeah. I hope, dude, I hope it's not 6-6, because
yep.
it's like, I think, and the other thing is, living in Morgantown, when expectations are high, that's usually when the Mountaineers don't do well.
No,
last year I loved us because everybody's like, they suck. I go, yeah, we're gonna go like 7-5 or 8-4.
It was so much fun to watch, and I'm like sitting in state. I mean, granted, I love where I live now, but I'm like, why couldn't it be like this when I lived there? Like, come on. My first year was fun. My first year was the Will Greer year. So,
and Garrett Green, I should say, is still probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah,
just having 4 combined 3,500 yards, 30 plus touchdowns. I mean, he's one of the best dual threat guys in the country, and he's just a gamer, man. And I thought when he played at Penn State last year, it was only like his 4th career start. Missed some throws. I think playing at Penn State really set the tone for the rest of the year, because that score wasn't really indicative of the game. I mean, Franklin punches it in with 2 seconds to go. Because he won that damn cover.
You should have been calling timeouts with 2 minutes to go. You should have been. They were trying to run it out.
What was your logic against Northwestern 3 weeks later?
We're not. We don't want to talk about that.
He's running up against damn Northwestern. I go, this guy's unbelievable.
I do think they were trying to run it out. It was like, so I had my old roommate from West Virginia came up for the game.
James Franklin, next head coach of Iowa State.
Yeah, Jimmy always knows the number. No, I turned to him because West Virginia scores. They do the loop-de-loop.
Yeah, I didn't
point
like
conversion.
I'm not gonna lie.
And then Penn State has the ball with Prabula, the backup, and he's like Diet Trace McSorley, so he's just gonna read option, pull whatever.
Yeah.
And Neil Brown starts calling timeouts, which I understand. Neil Brown has to show that he's not gonna give up, because it was like I think they were down 15 or something. But I'm like, I turned to my buddy. I turned to my buddy. I'm like, hey, if he keeps calling timeouts, Penn State is getting 10. Like it was like 8 yards, 7 yards, 7 yards. And I'm like, if he keeps calling timeouts, they're going to get near the goal line, and he's not going to take a knee at the goal line. It's not happening. And he's like, well, why would he do that? I'm like, because you keep calling timeouts. Just stop calling timeouts. But no, the Mountaineers are going to remember it. So they're coming,
week 1's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a 1-possession game, and I think it'll be as fun an atmosphere in week 1 next to what'll be at College Station for UJ. Those will be the top 2, and then the Swamp for Miami. Those 3 atmospheres will be off the chart.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, of course, I'm more excited about the atmosphere of the last game of the year at College Station, but Notre Dame's going to be a fun one for sure.
Really, really quick, Ryan, before we get into the vital information, I'm curious because you and I haven't touched base since the brawl. How did West Virginia fans like their trip to Penn State? Were they, because I've heard the students were the students and not very nice. But then I heard like everyone else said it was fine. Like it was like everyone was pretty welcoming. Like honestly, like was it pretty good? Like
it's a college football game. Not everybody's going to be happy. Nobody likes to lose. But it was. Everybody, my buddies that made the trip had a good time, and it was cool for them to see Happy Valley in primetime, the whiteout.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was fun. Because I still follow West Virginia people, and they were like. the first thing I saw that morning when I still had cell service because it's a complete dead zone was West Virginia fans being like, they call us Hicks. We're tailgating in a cow pasture right now. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
Yeah.
And then I saw some people saying, what's the AD's name? Is it Baker?
Ren
Ren
Baker.
Baker.
Yeah, Ren Baker. They're like, Baker needs to put all the Penn State people's parking passes all the way down at Kroger, so they have to walk like we had to walk to Penn State. I'm like, dude, there's 110,000 people there. Like, yes, you're not going to get a prime parking spot. Okay,
Yeah.
You take
Everyone-
the PRT.
yeah, take the PR. Yeah, right. Take the PRT. Force them to take the PRT. But I'm like,
WU
listen,
fans,
I
man.
have to walk. Listen, I'm a season ticket holder. I have to walk like close to a mile to get to the stadium. Like, I have to far walk too. But it seemed like all the West Virginia fans had a good time. But I will say, I was a little disappointed. It wasn't as loud as I thought it was going to be. It was very much we should win this game type of thing. And I'm like, man, I wish it had a little extra juice. But great matchup. Like,
Everybody thought
that's
we
what makes
sucked
this-
back then, though. So, like you said, you probably
Hey,
you were overlooking us a little bit.
I was 1 point off of that total. I said, listen,
I know.
West Virginia's going to make this a game.
Yeah.
I said, but then Penn State's going to pull away towards the end and make it not look as close as as it was for a while. But no, listen, regionality, West Virginia, Penn State, West Virginia, Pitt. Listen, I mean, I'm very much Penn State playing Pitt for the same reason West Virginia doesn't want to play Marshall. But that's what makes this sport great, man.
Oh yeah.
Like when West Virginia and Penn State, face off. But we need to bring back Old Ironside too. We got to find. It's where the Ark of the Covenant is. It's lost. But we're all right. We're gonna end the episode here because we're on an hour and a half right now. We're gonna end it with vital information. A couple questions for you.
He
some
says
of these,
a couple. It's like 10.
it's gonna be just. It can be West Virginia guys. It could not be West Virginia guys. I'm going to ask you to not include West Virginia, or at least give me a West Virginia and a non-West Virginia. But so first we start off, state your program of choice.
Wait, so West Virginia.
This
and
is West Virginia.
No, just one.
Okay, yeah, West Virginia University Mountaineers.
There we go. Your first ever favorite player, not your favorite all time, just the first guy you were like, wow.
Ooh, I think I got to go Pat White, man. Pat White was such a generational talent.
Yep.
I know it's still West Virginia, but he was a cheat code on the video game.
Yep. And then was he your favorite player all time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's hard. Not
electric.
Yeah.
Electricity right there.
Yeah.
Most memorable season as a Mountaineer fan.
Probably got it. It probably would be the one that we lost 13-9 to Pitt.
Oh, no.
It's as much as
07.
just because when Rich Rod left and then the way we beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, there was a lot of pride in that program. Like we were in the dumpster. We had just lost to our rival as like a 3-touchdown favorite. But then to be able to beat Oklahoma the way we did in the Fiesta Bowl would probably be, that was 2007. One game away from the title game.
Roller coaster of emotions that had to be.
Oh,
up
God.
to down to then up again. Now, favorite uniform combination for the Mountaineers?
Traditionals.
Just
Blue,
the traditionals?
Yeah, blue jersey, gold pants. I'm a tradition guy. I like, it just looks flashy, man. It's just classic.
Yep. Favorite uniform outside of West Virginia?
Ooh, good question. I would probably say, it's like I said, I'm a classic guy. I love Alabama's uniforms.
Yeah,
They're just the number on the helmet. Just I like Penn State too. Penn States are old school as well.
Those classic ones, the all whites. I love
Yes.
the all whites.
Yep.
They're so plain. Favorite win as a fan?
Favorite win as a fan? Probably the Will Grier game.
The Texas game?
The Texas game. Yeah. We stole that. And then just the way it took off, the horns down, and then they banned it like a bunch of cowards. And yeah,
I remember that day very vividly. It was a good day.
Yeah.
I went actually same day. Penn State played West Virginia in an exhibition basketball game.
yeah, it was
That
a bad
same
day
day.
for that
Yeah, as
sport.
well,
Yeah,
But and then we watched that game, and then we went out to Morgantown. We went down to
Yeah.
High Street, and man, it was.
yeah.
I felt pretty good. Felt pretty good. Watched Penn State get just absolutely throttled by Michigan, so that lifted my spirits. Anyway, best tradition in sports. I need what's your favorite West Virginia tradition? I can all pretty much
The country roads for
Yeah.
sure.
So, and give me one without West Virginia.
So I'll go to one of my other rivals. Love Penn State. Love playing Penn State. I don't love Penn State. I love playing Penn State. I love playing Pitt. I wish Pitt was in the Big 12, to be honest, as much as I hate their guts. I also hope Virginia Tech is in the Big 12 one day.
Oh,
I think Enter Sandman is one of the most underrated electric
mhm.
atmospheres where they do the
Yep.
walk, and then that fan base they're like us, man. They're psychotic,
They
they're
are.
passionate, they're in the country, and it's a great tradition. Enter
You know what?
Sandman for me.
I never thought of. There are a lot of parallels between West Virginia and
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. I mean, the Black Diamond Trophy. I mean, how long has West Virginia had the Black Diamond? It's been for a while.
Just ask that Twitter page.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think it's a little annoying because it's like,
Yeah,
all right,
it is.
like, yeah, but hey,
It's fun. It's a fun.
it's always good to beat Tech. It's always good to beat
Yep.
Pitt and Tech.
Yep. Best place to eat in Morgantown, or your favorite place to eat in Morgantown?
Probably Kegler's.
Keglers.
Yeah,
is good.
but I got to shout out my spot, Mountain Mamas. Mountain Mamas is a good spot.
There it is. Well,
Yeah.
this is where you can. Best bar in Morgantown.
Mountain Mamas, baby.
There we go.
Yeah.
Also was my favorite spot when I lived there too. And I think I messaged you because I went down for the brawl with my buddy, and I was like, hey, we got to go to Mountain Mamas. And I walk in, and Ryan and Rush show, big flag on the
Right
side.
there,
I was like, whoa, my guys. Favorite stadium, not Pushkar.
Favorite stadium. So I worked for I don't know if you know this. I worked for Bob Huggins for 10 years, and so
Oh yeah. Yes.
yeah. So I got to see the stadiums. I never got to go to a game at this place, but the way Oklahoma State's locker room with Gallagher Iba and Boone Pickens, you just walk out and there's like a door that like connects it to. I want to go to a game at Oklahoma State. I think that is such a cool state looking stadium, and then just a cool atmosphere. So Oklahoma State would probably be my favorite non-West Virginia. An underrated one that I want to go back. I haven't been back in years. West Point on the Hudson River.
Ooh.
You got to put that on your bucket list.
Yep.
My dad
Yeah.
was in the Army, so he went to West Point. So we used to always go to games.
I've played in there once. Amazing.
It's beautiful
cool.
up there.
So cool.
Beautiful.
And like we got off the bus and the helicopters are coming. There's paratroopers. I'm like, oh my God, this place is crazy.
Yeah.
A little intimidating, like before you went to play. And then lastly, you can't say Pitt. Who do you hate the most? You can't say Pitt.
It'd probably be Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Just because I grew up in Virginia.
Mhm.
And all my friends went to Virginia Tech, and they're a little entitled, even though we've been beating their tails the last couple times we've been playing them. But each year Pitt will always be number one, and then Virginia Tech. Yeah.
All right. Ryan, absolutely great episode.
Yep.
Thank you again for coming on. Pleasure. We have to. You have to become a recurring guest for. You got to
absolutely.
be our Big 12 guy.
Absolutely, man.
So, Ryan, tell everyone where they can follow you at.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Moneyline_Mac for my personal. Go subscribe to the Ryan and Rush Show and the College Experience. And next time I come on, we may not be the Big 12 anymore. So who knows what our name is. But the one thing I can guarantee, we're America's league and we're the most entertaining league. So that's all I can promise you.